Dr. Z. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to share with you a perspective, a way to look at the ways you sometimes may be thinking about, or the ways that will help you to think about when you're confronted with difficult choices. These choices oftentimes are going to come into your life either in the beginning of gender transition for most of you, or in the middle of your gender transition. And I'm talking about very specific, very particular type of choices that you are being confronted with. Oftentimes, these are the choices that both seemingly are something that you very, very badly want. Both seemingly is something that you don't want to give up. So these are not the choices between doing something and then losing something that maybe is not that essential to you to begin with. These are the very difficult choices that a lot of you are a lot of times being confronted with and can be very, very difficult. I'll be also talking about the choice that some of you presented in relationships, and I want to be very clear. A lot of times when you do come out, especially in long-term marriages or in long-term relationships, and you do tell your partners that you are transgender and you want to transition, and your partner tells you ultimatum, or they tell you that that's it, they're divorcing you. As I always say, a lot of times the reason why they're being so resistant and so kind of strong-headed at ending relationship is because their relationship has already eroded over the years. So this is a different type of choice, because in this case, really, the way I see it is that you have a choice between yourself, or you have a choice to stay in relationships that has eroded and just doesn't work out. I'm talking about the type of choices today that are both seemingly good and both can give you positive things in your life. An example of relationship that I see lately quite often is this. You're in a relationship with a person, maybe you've been married for a long time, maybe you've been domestic partners for a long time, maybe your relationship is relatively new. You two care very much about each other. You two may still love each other and have very strong emotional being. And you realizing that, or maybe you already came out to your partner and your partner says that I love you, I care about you a lot, but I'm just not seeing myself being in a relationship with you when you are expressing yourself in this gender, because I'm just not attracted to this gender and I just can't change it. And for me, that's a big part of the relationship, which, by the way, if they do say, that's completely okay and valid, because relationships are much more than just about liking and loving ourselves and our partners, for our personalities, for our qualities. Sexuality and gender plays a big part of those relationships. So this is a scenario where the relationship is not eroded. You two care about each other, and otherwise you two want to stay together. And you're confronted with this choice whether to stay in a relationship or to choose yourself, to choose your health, to choose, again, choice is not the right word, but to make a decision to better yourself. Another example between the choices that both are difficult and challenging and both are really good choices will be, let's say you work as maybe a professor, a teacher at university, and this is your vocation, this is your passion, this is what you love to do, substitute professor for any other profession you have out there. You absolutely love your job, you love it. And you know that if you were to come out, you just wouldn't be able to also maintain your job. For whatever reason it is, coming out at your work, coming out at university where you are, coming out where you're at, it's just not going to be supportive. And so as a result, you're realizing that here's two things. Your career, your vocation that you've been working so hard for, something that you love so much, something that you've been cultivating and growing, and you're not ready to give it up. You're not ready to walk away, and you shouldn't have to walk away from it. And a decision you have to make between pursuing your gender transition. Both are good. Both should not be put on hold. Both should not be just given up on. But the two of them cannot coexist together, at least in this context, in the context of you maybe coming out and doing it at employment where you have, for whatever reasons. So that's another example. Another example, sometimes you have to leave your hometown, place where you have put in your roots, place that is familiar to, place that is so close to your heart, because you just know that for whatever reasons, lack of resources, maybe the place where you live at is not advanced yet, so to speak, where you have to live to a big city, where you have to move to a big city in order to transition. And again, you're confronted with this, what seems to be really, really unfair choice, because you love your hometown and yet you have to pursue yourself. So how do you make decisions when you're confronted with choices that either one is something that matters to you so much, something that you care about so much, something that you invested your life and time and energy into, and yet if you pursue this over here, it's almost like you're at a fork road. If you pursue this over here, this path is going away. Now, of course, one can say you can always move back into your town, absolutely, once you transition or whatever, and one can say that you will have another relationship with other people, or one can say that you can teach and be a professor at a different university. But it's not the same, is it? It's not the same as that which we are attached to, that we're familiar with, that we have a good relationship with. Very different type of choice, by the way. If you're working for the company that you don't really care about much, and you know that the company is not going to be supportive, well, you might as well just leave it, right? You might as well pursue your health. But when it's actually companies that you really you care about the company, you have put in so much of your work, and then you want to stay with them, but know that you can't, that's a very different choice. So this type of choices can be really, really hard to make. I especially see them being so hard to make in regards to relationships, other intimate personal relationships or other types of relationships, where you just have to, something has got to give. The two cannot coexist within the same context. I wish it did, but it just can't happen like that. So how to make those decisions? People always ask me this, Dr. C, how do I make decision to move over here and better my health and alleviate gender dysphoria? And yet I'm not ready to give this up. This is something I've been working for all of my life. How do I make the decision? You know what? There is no right or wrong answer here. When you are confronted with the crossroads like this, where both of those are well, they're both good options, so to speak, in so many different ways. When you confronted at the crossroads, there's really just what you feel like the best and the most right decision for you at the moment, the one that matters to you the most right now for whatever reasons. And that can be so difficult and so challenging to make. A lot of times people call it sacrifice. I have to make a sacrifice to give this up in order to pursue myself. And it oftentimes is exactly what it is. It feels like sacrifice. The perspective I want you to incorporate and to start thinking about is to realize that sometimes certain things in life are giving to us, our experiences we have in life, that we're kind of meant to have for X amount of time. Think about your life as a book, and each chapter is a certain experience in your life. So when it comes to relationship, maybe living or being in a relationship with this person has been something that was meant to be in this chapter of your book, of your life story, for 5, 10 years, how long, however long you've been together. And now the next chapter starts, which is called You Became Aware of Gender Dysphoria. And now you have to make a decision. And it's not that you have to give those people up because you don't love them any longer. It's just that you have to realize that sometimes we have to let go of things we even love, things that even matter to us very much so, in order to grow and in order to pursue other things. And this is how you can look at it, as a chapter. One chapter closing, another chapter opening. It doesn't negate this chapter. It doesn't make this chapter less meaningful. It doesn't mean that you will never care about this person or that you have to wipe out the memories of the person. It almost reminds me of those relationships we see sometimes even in the media of people where they love each other and they care about each other. But if they were to live together, they just can't sustain it. For some reason, they're just not meant to be meshed up together under the same roof. But otherwise, everything is great and they're great fit, but living together just, boy, it doesn't work out for them. And we see those people, sometimes they realize that We still care about each other, but we have to make decision not to be together because it just doesn't work out for us. This is kind of the same thing where you have to make a decision that one chapter closes because the two cannot coexist, and that's okay. We have to acknowledge that sometimes in life we have to let go of things that we love, we have to let go of things that we care about. We just have to let them go. And as painful as it is, letting go is also an essential part of growing. Letting go is also an essential part of opening up for something else to come in. Hopefully a lot of you don't have to be confronted with making this choice, because this choice is very painful, it's very difficult. But if you are, realize there's an opportunity for one chapter closing, another one opening. And it doesn't mean that you need to stop caring about this chapter of your life. It doesn't mean that this chapter has to stop existing. You just have to file it away inside of your experiences, inside of your life experiences, as the chapters that you had. File it away as a chapter you lived, as a chapter that you made the best of, as the chapters that you enjoyed, and that now you're living another chapter. But sometimes something is going to have to give, and sometimes the decision of what has to give has to be a very challenging one and difficult one. And there's no right or wrong choice, there is just. Each one of the crossroads is going to lead you somewhere. And maybe if you decide to not deal with gender dysphoria, you will have to deal with it later in your life. Or maybe something else will have to be sacrificed in order to maintain that relationship, or in order to maintain that job at the university, or in order to maintain living in that hometown of yours. Maybe what has to be sacrificed is that you don't, while you are maybe transitioning on a spiritual plane, maybe you are transitioning in a more private way, you're not going to do it outwardly where it can it can potentially sacrifice the scenario you're trying to preserve. But something has to give. And that's really, really hard, and it's really difficult. And I hope that none of you are ever confronted with that decision, but the reality is that I do know for a fact that a lot of you are confronted with that difficult decision making. So comment below, let me know whether you had to be confronted with decision where both of the options, both of the choices were good choices to make. You were attached to both one of them and you didn't want to give up either one of them, but you had to give up either one of them. Share, comment below what helped you, to carry your strengths, what helped you to adapt, what helped you to navigate your waters as you made one decision over the other. Comment below, let me know. I love reading your comments, and I'll see you all next time.